It's Radio Free 501c, the podcast of Rogue Tulips Consulting. I'm your host, Cecilia Sapp, and we're so excited to be back for Season 6 and continue bringing you outstanding ideas and thought leaders and different ways of thinking. So don't forget to subscribe because you're not going to want to miss any of it. This episode of Radio Free 501c is supported by our partner, USAE News, the weekly newspaper of Association CVBs and hotels. Learn more at usaenews.com. This week I'm joined by returning guest Kevin Tuuaga, and he's here to talk with us about how we can get the most out of any event or conference we attend. We're talking fully engaging in events and being there in the moment. You don't want to miss this wonderful conversation. It's Monday, December 16th, 2024. Welcome to episode 267. Hey everybody, it's Monday, December 16th, and it's time for another episode of Radio Free 501c, brought to you by Rogue Tulips Consulting. We're having a good time here, smack in the middle of the holiday season. Hope you're having the same. I'm your host, Cecilia Sapp. I'm the principal and founder of Rogue Tulips, and I'm so very glad that you're here with us this week for our last podcast episode of 2024. This podcast is supported by USAE News, the paper of record of the association industry. You can check them out at usaenews.com, and they have subscriptions for all budget sizes. Now, as we prepare to wrap up 2024 and move into season 7 of our series in 2025, I am so happy to be rounding out the year with my friend Kevin Tuuaga. He's here to talk with us about fully engaging in events and being in the moment while you're at the event. So before we dive into the topic, I would like to remind everybody, if you haven't already subscribed or followed us, please take a moment and do that on your favorite podcast service so you don't miss our future episodes. So over to Kevin. Kevin, welcome back. So glad you're here. Would you like to say hello and tell us a little about yourself?
Sure. Well, thank you for having me back, Cecilia, and hello to the Radio Free 501c listeners. Great to be back. Again, my name is Kevin Tuuaga. I am with Leading Age California and here to discuss about events.
That's great. And Kevin, what do you do at Leading Age California?
I am the vice president of Leading Age California. I'm sorry, I'm the vice president of education with Leading Age California. And so I manage and oversee all of the education programming that also includes events.
And this is why you are the perfect person to talk to about being present in the moment, because I know I get the most out of things when I put my phone down and quit looking through that lens and actually just be where I am and enjoying that activity and the people I'm with. So, why do you think being present matters?
Well, before I get into that, Cecilia, I think in general, from an event standpoint, is folks have to understand that events are more than just scheduled programming. They're living, breathing experiences that thrive when we show up fully, not just in body, but in mind and spirit. So at Leading Age California, our events are designed to inspire, connect, and elevate. But the secret ingredient to creating that experience is you, the attendee, in being present and engaged in every moment. So, Cecilia, when you're asking why being present matters, when you're fully engaged, you absorb more value. And whether it's a keynote or a casual hallway chat, every moment holds the potential to inspire and unlock opportunities. Uh, in addition, you know, these events are labor of love. So for me and my team, it's not just from the organizations, or I'm sorry, the organizers, but also from the sponsors and vendors. So, your engagement as an attendee honors their efforts and investment.
Well, and that's one of the things we discussed as we were preparing for this episode is what are some of the ways you can be fully engaged and really be in the moment? And one of the things that we were talking about was how can you support the vendors and show gratitude for the sponsors while you're at a meeting? I know a lot of times if I'm walking through the exhibit hall, I will thank people for supporting the conference. And that's a nice way to show some of that gratitude. But what's your perspective on that? How can people do that well?
Well, you know what, you definitely hit the the nail on the head in terms of saying thank you, because that goes a long way. And so, it's important to support the vendors because they're not just selling stuff. They're there to offer solutions that can solve real challenges for your organization or even enrich the services that you currently provide. And ways to be engaged with the vendors is visiting their booths and have an open mind and approach them with genuine curiosity. Ask questions about their products or services and how they align with, your goals, your organization's goals. And again, just to reiterate, show gratitude. A simple thank you goes a long way.
Well, I agree with that. I try to thank people a lot and acknowledge what they do in my daily life, the way people help me. So especially if somebody's like hauled a huge booth to an exhibit hall halfway across the country, and then maybe they have to go back across the country for another conference. Try to acknowledge the fact they're there and be supportive of that. I
Mhm.
think do you have any suggestions for how to make sponsors and vendors feel welcome at a conference? Because I know a lot of times there seems to be this invisible wall between the attendees and the sponsors and vendors. Like, people walk through the exhibit hall and avert their eyes instead of
Right.
actually saying, oh, hello, or just like nice booth or something like that. What are some ways to really encourage that feeling of we don't just thank you for your investment, but you're welcome here.
I think, based on my experience, it's striking up a conversation. Don't just approach a vendor's booth with the idea of just grabbing a pen swag or, which, mind you, we all love, a good tchotchke here and there. But, there's somebody also in that booth that you could strike up a conversation with. And it goes a long way because you may just walk away with a partnership that changes the game for your team and organization.
Mhm. And that's a really good point. We overlook the fact that these people could become a partner with us if we take the moment, or maybe we can give them a referral.
Mhm.
Because currently I'm working as a consultant. So I like to see what other people are doing because then I can give them the appropriate referral. Uh, and sometimes, yeah, I eat their candy. I'll admit it. When they put out those bowls of chocolate, I'll eat your candy.
Yeah.
Uh, I leave the tchotchkes for other people though, because I've had my share of meeting tchotchkes. So I mentioned putting aside my phone. Like if I really want to be involved in something, I will put the phone away. I
Mhm.
don't watch it through my lens of my camera and then posting everything on social media because I feel like you miss a lot that way. What are some other tips that you have for people? Like you're going to an event, you're at a conference, you're connecting with people, but how can you really be in that moment and really get a lot out of it? Because there's so much that we can do. Like we can get energy, we can get information, we can make a connection if we're actually present. So, what are some of your tips for that?
You know what? I think some of the best and also practical tips that I've seen, um, some of the attendees do is, there's an expression of tech down's eyes up. So, we all need to check our emails, but we need to set boundaries along that as well because you can't be fully engaged if you're, you know, responding to an email. And granted, I don't know what's happening back at the office, but, you're also invested into attending this experience or this conference. And so, you know, maybe it's a no phones during a keynote. Set a rule for yourself and maybe check notifications on your phones during, breaks or during the lunch. Also, engage with intent, whether it's a session, a networking event, or even a vendor booth. Ask yourself, what can I take away from this and how can I contribute? Another one is, and we touched on this earlier, is just to practice gratitude. At the end of each day, take a moment to reflect on what you've gained, insights, connections, or simply the joy of being part of something bigger, like the event that you're attending right then and there.
And I think that that's really great because those are wonderful tips, is what
Mhm.
I want to say. I think so often we're distracted by this multitask world we've been forced to live in with all the technology, the phones ringing, we're getting alerts from the news, people at the office are texting, and you end up missing what's actually going on around you. And I know this happens to me sometimes on a webinar or a conference call, a Zoom call that I'm not leading. I might get distracted by something on my phone and then I miss what somebody just said. So I really do try to just put it aside and not have any, not have anything in my way of engagement, basically. But that's a conscious decision that a person has to make. You have to choose to not be distracted. And that's very difficult in this world because it's a very noisy world right now and lots going on and many opportunities for things. But one of the things I know we want to talk about the ripple effect of engagement, and
Yep.
maybe this does tie into that topic. But convention and visitor bureaus, you probably work with them pretty closely as you're organizing your events and conferences. Is there a way we can work with the local CVB to make our event more engaging or to give people some motivation to really be present in the moment? I know a lot of CVBs are very supportive when it comes to ideas for local activities or
Mhm.
having speakers. So, do you think there's a role for the CVB in building engagement?
Oh, absolutely. With your local or, depending upon where you have your event, definitely, work with their CVB, specifically your destination management officer, only because, they could also assist you in providing even more of a greater experience for your attendees for your conference. And so they have insights as to, you mentioned before, speakers that have, attended some of their previous events held within, their city. They also want to highlight their city too. So there's always an experience that, you can work with some of the local businesses and take maybe even your attendees off site to create those great experiences and or excursions. I know that, if you're a foodie, like some of my attendees are, including myself, you can work with some of the local restaurants within that city that, your conferences, and maybe there's a discount that can be offered to your attendants or attendees solely on, the destination of your location, and your DMO or your CVB would be more than happy to assist with that.
That's a great idea. I,
Mhm.
I don't do event planning. I've been part of a lot of conferences over the years. When I was on staff, I did my part, but not like your role where I'm organizing the whole thing. I just go where I'm told and show up when I'm supposed to. So I don't know a lot of these, back end things that you can do to make things really interesting and engaging and how you can partner with the CVB on that. One of the things I wanted to ask you is do you think it's appropriate at any point to say to people, hey, why don't you put your phone away and just be in the event? And not like ban them, but just like encourage them.
We encourage that. It's a great question. We do encourage that. And normally in the beginning of each breakout session and even our keynote sessions is we want folks to be unplugged. We want them to um, get dialed in. I don't know if that's the right word, but get dialed into, the experience and the messaging that, not only our keynote, but overall the theme, the experience of the event is there to offer to the attendee. You paid for it. We're trying to give you that experience.
Mhm. That's good. That's funny. You said dialed in when we're saying for a few minutes. We want you dialed in, but put your
Right.
phone away. That's a good one. So, well, you mentioned to me again as we were preparing for this conversation the ripple effect of engagement.
Mhm.
And I really like that term because a lot of people don't realize a ripple effect can be positive. I
Yep.
think a lot of times we think of it as being kind of a negative connotation. But what are some of the ripple effects of really being engaged?
Well, I think, when we're talking about the ripple effect of engagement, you know, it's what happens when you show up fully. So you leave the event inspired, energized, and better equipped to lead. Plus, your engagement sets the tone for others and creating a domino effect of enthusiasm and collaboration. And, like, you know, I've attended or seen in some scenarios where a phone goes off and the next thing you know, another phone goes off. And, that ruins not only the experience for the presenter, but everyone around you. And so, you want to be there present, you want to be there and you want to show up fully. And and because when you do, it is a win-win. You're not only maximizing your experience, but also honoring the collective effort of every attendee, speaker, vendor, and sponsor involved.
I love that you said that about it also ruins it for the people sitting around you
Mhm.
because there's like people talking during the movie in the theater.
Oh,
Or one time I was taking Amtrak to visit some family, and this woman was on her phone talking very loudly the entire train ride about how she was going to get back at her condo manager or something. And I'm just like, you're ruining my beautiful train ride through Northern Virginia. But yeah, that's another important thing. It's distracting to the speaker. It's distracting to the people around you. So I'm
mhm.
really glad that you said that. Now, another thing, and we hadn't actually touched on this in our prep, but you've just got me thinking about it because as a person who attended a conference this year in a wheelchair, and seeing the different ways I had to do things,
Right.
engaging as somebody with a mobility issue is a little challenging. So I was wondering if you had any advice for event organizers about how
Absolutely.
you can help people maybe have a mobility issue or maybe another kind of need for assistance, like maybe a vision issue or a hearing issue or something like that. Now, do you have any advice about how you can help them if they have a more engaging experience in a conference?
Of course. So, when your when your meeting planner is doing site selection, you have to factor all of that when making the decision of where you're planning to hold your event. And then when you have the event, when it comes to the registration process, there should be a question there to highlight any sort of additional needs to help the attendee experience the conference, just like anybody else. And so you want to make sure that those questions are asked so that way you're prepared or your team is prepared, in making sure that, this attendee that requires some special attention or special needs would eventually have a very smooth and wonderful experience like everyone else.
And do you have any advice for people attending the event or conference about how to interact with people? Because, for example, I'm in a wheelchair at the
Yep.
time at the conference, and everybody else was standing up. So, like, all the networking events are built for standing and walking, which I get, I totally understand it. But can become very isolating because you
Yep.
either can't participate in the conversation or people are kind of talking down to you and not like in a condescending way, but because they have to like lean over to talk to you.
Right.
So, it is hard to be included. So, do you have some tips for other attendees on how to engage with people who might be in a wheelchair or some other sort of mobility situation?
Well, going back to who my organization, who we represent a very vulnerable population, older adults. So, you know, those that are attending our conference are caregivers. So, we run the gamut of the senior care. And so we have, throughout all walks of life, folks attending our conference. And to be honest with you, I don't believe it's ever been an issue in terms of getting any feedback where somebody didn't or somebody felt isolated. However, um, in cases where there are, if somebody or if a meeting planner or somebody's event is experiencing that, I would definitely hold, maybe a fun little area designated to maybe a first timer, or maybe pair them up with a mentor or somebody that's very seasoned with the conference in introducing them to other folks to making them feel more welcome and um, establishing those new networking, or establishing a new network of folks to engage with.
Oh, I really love that suggestion
Mhm.
because I think most human beings do tend to be shy in
Yep.
groups, and so having that connection with somebody
like a
is
conference
really
buddy.
great. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, I love the concept of the conference buddy.
yeah.
The buddy system works really well all over associations, I think. We used to have chapter president buddies when I did chapter relations. So it's really very helpful.
Mhm.
So as we're getting near the end of our conversation today, Kevin, I wanted to ask you, what does being fully engaged and in the moment mean to you, and how what do you take away from that?
I think when when you're fully engaged at events, it's more than a professional courtesy. It's a gift you give yourself as an attendee. It's about showing up with curiosity, gratitude, and intention. So when you're in the moment, you don't just attend an event, you experience it. And that's kind of where, the magic happens. That's where the real experience takes place, is when you're fully engaged and invested.
That's great advice. Yes, that's when I get the most out of it. I know is when I'm actually there,
Mhm.
not just in the room. I'm actually there. I love that. So, as a returning guest, you may recall that I like to ask my guest, what is the one thought you would like the audience to take away today? And how could they get in touch with you if they wanted to talk with you more on this topic?
Sure. Well, one thing to take away from this is, aside from being fully engaged and how to be fully engaged, is, we throw this word around, but it goes again a long way, is gratitude. Whether it's showing the vendors, I think we may have forgotten sponsorships, or sponsors, gratitude for the sponsors. They're the backbone of the event. They're the ones, helping offset some of the costs for you to experience, or have a wonderful experience at this event. And, you know, again, saying thank you to them goes a very long way. And, you know, from a meeting planner side, their contributions allow us to bring in top-notch speakers and curate unforgettable experiences and receptions. And, you know, the only thing I can mention or add in addition to that is, attend their events, say thank you, maybe and recognize them on, social media posts when you start posting your selfies on there. Highlight them as well, because, they're also there to create this experience for you. And
And
if you wanted to get in touch with me, you could send me an email. That's Tuuaga, Ktuuaga, at leadingage.ca for California.org. So Ktuaga at leadingagca.org.
oh, that's great. Well, thank you. That's a lot of really great insight about how to really get a lot out of being somewhere. And not just an event, not just a conference. All the insights you've shared can be applied to all the other activities we do in life. So thank you for coming back and sharing that with us.
Of course, thank you for having me. And thank you again, listeners.
Well, we have to go rogue for now, but we'll be back next time with another exciting episode. So, again, gentle reminder, if you haven't followed us or subscribed yet, please take a moment and do so you don't miss any of our future episodes. We will be taking a hiatus through December into early January. We'll be back January 13th with our first episode of 2025. So, keep an eye out for that. So, again, I want to thank Kevin Tuaga of Leading Age California for joining us this week and sharing his insights on being fully present at conferences and events. If you'd like to learn more about Rogue Tulips Consulting and how we can help your organization bloom outside the box and see the world differently, check out our website, roguetulips.com. Let's have a conversation and see if we can work together. Also, if you're interested in ongoing professional development and education in nonprofit management, check out our education page. We'll be posting our spring course schedule soon. You can sign up for a Notify Me form to find out when registration opens. We will be offering our ethics course again in 2025 with all new content. So keep an eye out for that announcement as well. So that's it for this week. On behalf of Kevin and myself, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.